My name is DJ Qualls, and Tyler might recognize me from Hustle and Flow, The New Guy, Road Trip, or my new TV show, The Man in High Castle.
This is beautiful.
Thank you. I'm nervous.
Oh, no worries. I'm nervous too.
Okay, good.
When DJ opened the door, I had absolutely no idea who he was, but he was very sweet, and right when I sat down, I knew in that moment everything was going to be okay. Have you ever seen a psychic before?
Yeah, but just have my cards read and sort of as a laugh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So
I mean, I didn't have a connection with it. I didn't really speak to very much.
Sure.
I won't say that I'm a believer, but I will say that I'm really open. Because I'm smart enough to know that I don't know a lot. I think a lot of people need to think that there's something else. I like to think that I don't.
Because I'm very skeptical, and that's kind of the funny irony about the fact that I'm a psychic. I'm an incredibly skeptical psychic of other psychics. Because anybody can tell you your loved one loves you.
Interesting.
I always like to kind of describe basically how I do what I do. I don't use cards, I don't have a crystal ball. My head's not gonna spin around or anything. It's very straightforward.
I've been in LA so long that if your head spun around, I probably wouldn't think anything of it. I'm getting nervous. A lot of my life is spent with people looking at me on a set, but that's controlled, and I'm used to that. But this is about me in my house, and it's making me feel a little nervous and timid.
For you, any questions about your personal life?
I do have questions, sort of health things. Like, I'm always curious about that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So I will basically go down the list of susceptibilities. You have a very high susceptibility to acid reflux. So much so that you even have inflammation in your lower esophagus area. So that's good to keep in mind. You have a susceptibility to a long-term chronic issue. It won't ruin your life or anything along those lines. It's not anything that's super bad or super serious, but you do have a susceptibility to a long-term inflammation problem. This is interesting. So in multiple aspects of your body, you'll notice inflammatory related problems.
How could you know this? As a child, I had cancer, and how we diagnosed it is I had inflammation of my lymph nodes all over my body.
Right.
We dealt with it, but I have to constantly keep an eye on it.
I think, if anything, it's just the residual effects of what you've already been through.
The health information is so specific. The esophageal stuff, like I have terrible heartburn. And last night, I woke up with terrible heartburn. So dead on.
Let me see if I can get any connections on the medium side.
Okay.
So the way that I kind of work with this is that I really value evidentially based information. As I connect and kind of start picking up on info, I'm a bit like a bloodhound. I get a scent and I have to kind of go with it. Generally, I'll try to connect to whoever comes through. It's
so weird to think about that there could be people's souls and energy still out there. It's something I don't think about. Obviously, I would never have sex because I think that people are like hovering around looking at what I'm doing.
It looks like there's an object here. So do you mind if I hold on to it?
No, be careful because there's an actual razor in it.
Oh, wow. Okay, good to know.
I've had a couple of people who are really close to me pass on. One in particular that I think about all the time. It would be interesting to see if any of that comes through. That's physical, that aspect. Okay, so I have to initially talk about a man that's coming through who is referencing to his physical health, and he's going to talk about how he passed. Before he passed away, lungs were affected, and he's actually one of the few family members that would have really strongly had that characteristic. Yeah. Okay, do you know who that is? I do.
Okay, there is a reference to a middle. So this is. Just got my symbol for this. I got the symbol for a reference to a name being passed down.
Oh my God.
So was your name passed down from somebody else?
Yes.
Okay, who is that?
It was passed down from my father.
Right.
I think this is my grandfather you're talking about, actually, because it's whose object that you're holding.
Makes sense. Now, the interesting thing about this man is he's very straightforward. He's acknowledging the fact that he's referencing to his things after he died. So I know I'm holding on to this, but he's aware of a book, specifically involved his handwriting, that he is acknowledging that would have been passed down after he died.
It's not a book. It's a pouch.
It's a pouch.
And it's the only piece of his handwriting that we have. He wrote his name on it.
Okay.
My grandfather couldn't read.
Interesting. Interesting.
And so it was the only time I'd ever seen his signature.
Right. Okay. That would make sense.
He left it to me.
Oh, wow.
He had this pouch of things that were his sort of favorite things, like his little treasures, basically.
Right.
And I used to play with him as a child. He kept it in the bib of his overalls, and he would
pull it out, and I would play with those things.
Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, it's funny, even he's referencing to the marble or like a rock. Like, what value would a rock have?
Wow. It's so jarring that you are hearing things and then new things are coming up. Sorry, my brain is exploding.
Well, I don't know what this is.
There was a rock that's hematite that he told me was a piece of the moon.
Exactly, because I'm looking at it. And
Yeah,
it
it was not a piece of the moon. I believed it until I was like in high school.
He also had a funny sense of humor. And,
Oh my God, he was one of the funniest people I ever met.
He's hilarious.
It's interesting because I just did an interview where they asked me the best advice I'd ever gotten, and it was something funny that my grandfather had told me.
Well, he used to give really interesting advice about dating and relationships.
What it was.
Because
He told me never to put my penis somewhere I wouldn't put my mouth first.
No, I know. I'm aware. I'm blushing at the thought, but he's talking about the relationship joke.
Dude, he's out of his mind. I love that man.
Yeah, I didn't expect the other side to talk about penises, but it happens. That's kind of the beauty of it. You never know what's gonna come through. There's a joke about it. It's a terrible joke, but having to chop off a pinky or a toe.
He didn't have a pinky. He lost a pinky.
We call it stubby.
Oh my God, that's
There's
so
a joke
weird.
about the stub.
Well, my grandfather worked in an ice factory, like in the 40s and 50s.
Wow.
And he ground his pinky off in an ice machine, and people called him Stubby, but he used it as a teaching tool. He told me because how this happened, somebody had gotten poison ivy on their hands and couldn't come to work.
Right.
And he said, and it was a guy that he didn't like, and he was like, basically, I hope it eats his finger off. And he lost his finger that same day, and he told me that story about his pinky, so I would never wish something bad on another person.
Wow. Wow.
Wow, that is really specific.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about that in years.
I really feel like DJ's grandfather came through so much with so many specifics, childhood memories, inside jokes, basically help him remember that they had such a beautiful relationship.
This is really emotional. I wasn't expecting this.
He's referencing to his physical health. Now, the defining factor with him is that he's referencing to a susceptibility to serious lung issues. He's putting an abnormal emphasis on the fluid part. He's not showing me lung cancer.
It's not.
It's like, but he is referencing to the fluid in the lungs. This is something else.
Wow, this is incredible.
He's saying that he really put on a brave face. And this is really kind of the big thing. When he came across, this is a guy who didn't like to complain.
Mm-hmm. You're definitely right. He never talked about anything.
And it was kind of like, don't need to run off to the doctor to get bad news.
He would not see the doctor at all.
From his perspective, he was okay with his passing. To him, if he had to just wake up every morning and take a supplement or take a pill, that to him would be limiting his life.
So crazy, because he would not take medication. He had diabetes, but he died. His lungs filled with fluids, and that's how he passed.
Wow.
And so I think that maybe there was some pneumonia that he thought was coming, but he would not go to the doctor.
Right.
The thing is, I was the person that found him, and when I think about that, I think about him lying there and drowning in his sleep, and that was something very specific to say to me because I've thought about it so much.
Yeah, the way that he comes across with this is that he's acknowledging that at the time that he actually passed away, that nothing could be done at that point, and that's important to know.
I'm gonna grab a tissue. Sorry,
Yeah, please do.
It's way more emotional than I expected. My parents were very young when I was born, and my grandfather sort of took up the slack. When he died, it was such an absence for me, and I still feel it. Thank God my image isn't like a tough guy, or because I'm blowing that to pieces right now.
He views that after his passing, he snaps his fingers at me in regards to your career. And no doubt, I'm sure it's taken time for you to work and do things.
I got
but
immediately
he's fit
famous.
He's like snapping his fingers.
It happened immediately. I auditioned for a one-line part in a movie, got one of the leads. The movie made over $100 million, and 6 months later, I was on The Tonight Show.
Wow.
Like, it was so fast. I did like 12 movies in the first 3 years of my career. After the initial rush of attention and my life changing so much, it was very, very hard for me to deal with. My grandfather died when I was only 11, and now I'm a man, and my life has become what it's become. And it is amazing. It continues to be just more than I could have hoped for, but there's something missing, because he didn't see it, and I don't get to talk to him about it. And so it was like this, after this adulation and brand new money and all the things that I sort of ever secretly wished for I got, I was alone. It was very, very hard for me to deal with.
Understandably. Because when he comes across, I mean, his emphasis really strongly is he knew a very different version of you.
Yeah.
And that with where you're at now, he's so incredibly proud of you. And I need you to know that. You know,
That's really cool. I needed to hear that.
good.
I needed that validation, I think. I think I needed to know that he knew that our family had gone a little further than we maybe thought it could. It means a lot to me.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Papa. You know, just to hear how he feels about where I am now in my life and that he's proud of me, and it's a gift. I think I'm gonna sleep a little better tonight.
Oh, good.
You're giving us messages from people that are the closest to us that we can no longer touch or see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I view it as a privilege.
You know, the idea of loss is so scary. This makes it seem like loss isn't so final. And now I feel very calm. Like, I feel like a big catharsis. You're the best, dude.
Oh, thank you.
I just needed this and didn't know that I needed it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Oh, this has been so
Can I hug
fun.
you?
Absolutely, you can hug me.
Thanks, man.
Anytime if you ever need anything.
Absolutely. I think it was important for me to have Tyler in my house, because when you are in the public eye for long enough, you develop a subconscious veneer. You decide what you're going to project to the public, and everything else is private and yours. And this was good for me because I was able to just be myself and not be afraid to be judged and be honest.
I feel so relieved and so thankful and really so appreciative that he was so vulnerable and open, and he was amazing. I mean, very rarely do I have clients that really showed that much of themselves and put that much on display.
I don't know what to say.